Welcome back, everybody. You guys are listening to the Down to the Wire podcast. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and we have a great show for you guys today. We're going to be talking everything going on MLB and NFL news, a little bit of everything today. But before we get into any of that, I have a special guest on tonight. I've been on his show, I believe, 2 times now. He is the host of the Pesky Pole Podcast at Dean College. Please welcome into the show, everybody, Robert Shelley. Rob, how we doing, man?
We are not doing too bad. You right.
Yeah.
Gotta show the merch real quick, but you know.
For sure. Dude, no, for sure. I mean, 100%. So for anyone who doesn't know, I've been on Robert's show. Correct me if I'm wrong. It has been 2 times, right?
Twice now, yeah. Once just you and once with Adam, the guy who we don't talk about.
Yeah, well, it was actually funny. We mentioned before the show that if this ran late, if this recording ran late, we were automatically just going to blame Adam for this.
It was Adam's fault.
Yeah, and you even said this is why you and me work well together. I'm like
exactly.
I get this guy. 100%. But yeah, no. So why don't you introduce to the audience a little? Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about yourself?
So my name's Robert. I am a senior at Dean College, kind of away from the sports theme and everything. I'm a dance major, about to graduate in 30 some odd days. And a lot of people ask me, like, if you're a dance major, why'd you start a podcast about sports? Well, I've always had a love for baseball. And one of my friends from Maine, name was Ari, back in February 2020, sent me an Instagram DM after one of my dance classes. I look at my phone, it says, "Bro, I'm feeling insanely inspired today. Let's start a baseball podcast." And I was like, screw it, I'm in.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, we are now 67 episodes deep and still going strong.
That's awesome, man. I mean, very similar story to how Down to the Wire got started. Me and a bunch of my friends came together and, we just decided to do it one day. It was always something that I had wanted to do, when I came here, but then when I had some of my roommates kind of get behind me and they really got behind it too, that's what really made me excited about doing this whole thing.
Absolutely, man. And I mean, you and I are in the same boat right now as we're kind of running it solo.
Yeah, for a little bit. I mean, I try to get Tyler on whenever I can. I mean, he, obviously just schedules and everything, it's tough when he's not directly on campus. So, whenever I can get Tyler on the show, man, he's always on. Carter's also doing his thing right now. But it's always good to have it. It's always good to, have extra guests on the show. I love getting new voices on the show because it always just, it's a different dialogue every time. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm. And same with me, especially like I try my best to always have like different athletes on.
Yeah.
Because, I can have so much of an opinion on something, but somebody who's been in those situations and actually plays the game has a much more valuable opinion than I do,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's something you've really had some success with. Why don't you tell us like some of the people you've managed to get on your show so far?
So the biggest one would have to be Garrett Whitlock. And for any of my Red Sox fans out there, he has been tearing it up so far with the Red Sox. Probably one of the best pitchers, at least the most surprising pitcher out of the bunch. And
100%.
I obviously got him on my fantasy team because, and but I've gotten a bunch of minor league guys with the Red Sox. And these guys, I mean, people think about them and they're like, oh, they're famous. They have all this money, all this stuff. I mean, in all honesty, these are some of the most humble guys and laid back guys I've ever gotten to meet. Like, for example, one of the guys' name is Brendan Salucci.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's pitching in Greensville this year. Dude can throw 98 miles an hour.
Wow.
Got a cannon of an arm for a relief pitcher. And I will just sit here and I'll just randomly text him every now and then. He'll always answer my DMs. Been on the show twice, great guy. And I've gotten a bunch of different guys like that.
That's awesome, man. I mean, just to have those kind of connections like that, that's something I've been working with. I have some guys that I've, tried to establish some connections with. I can't wait. That's something that, especially when I get into the summer and, have more free time on my hands, that's something I'm definitely going to attack more and more. And it's awesome that you've been able to get those guys in, pretty, I mean, I'll say it's pretty, I mean, you have a pretty, your podcast has been going on for a while now, but you have it's still kind of at the beginning stages. Like, you're 67 episodes in. But I mean, you've been able to get some pretty notable names on so far. And frankly, man, I hope this is just the beginning, man.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that I'm really, really going to try and do this off season. One of the guys that I just had on the show last week, his name's Cole Brennan,
Mhm.
second round pick for the Red Sox back in 2017, right out of high school. He is apparently like really good friends, best friends with Tanner Houck.
Really?
So we gonna see if we can pull some strings.
That
Maybe
that would be awesome.
that's a hard maybe,
If if
but a
you could
maybe
get
nonetheless.
yeah, if you could get Tanner Houck on the show, that would be an amazing thing to get into. Before we get into any MLB news, though, unfortunately, you kind of have to start things on a little bit of a somber note. We did learn today that rap icon DMX did apparently die at the age of 50. Obviously, just terrible, terrible, terrible to hear. R.I.P. Prayers going up to him right now. I'm wishing the best for his family. Terrible situation to be in. At least I know for me, I remember at all my track meets, I always had at least some DMX in my in my Spotify playlist, just to always get me hyped up. I mean, I at the most I was just running a 24-second race, but I was always just trying to get the blood pump and get ready to go, and that was always just something that was in my rotation. So unfortunately, it's really unfortunate that this happened, but
Mhm.
I wish his family the best and everything there. But I did want to address that. But let's try to cheer this thing up again. Cheer this thing up again. Let's get into some baseball news. That's why I wanted to get Robert on the show tonight. But we started. But the Red Sox started this season off in kind of in a very rough place, to say it lightly. We started off getting swept by the Baltimore Orioles, arguably the worst team in the American League. I mean, and frankly, it wasn't even like we lost some like nail biters and things, and it just didn't go our way. we
It
were
was
getting our
bad.
we were getting our doors blown off. It was disgusting. At least, I mean, maybe the opening day game you can give to them, but we were suffering some pretty bad blowouts, and especially there were just some bad performances all around. I think everyone at this point in Boston is officially done with the Garrett Richards experiment.
Oh, I was done with it the minute we signed him. I looked at his numbers and I said, "Hell no, next."
Yeah, yeah,
But
no,
let me just say, the season turned around when I went to Fenway Park and watched the game. All right, Tampa Bay Rays came into town. Nick Pivetta hit the mound, had a one hitter through 5 innings. It was beautiful, right? That game had everything,
yeah.
right? We had a Xander inside the park home run, I will call it. We had a JD homer off the pesky pole.
Oh yeah.
We had who was it?
Great marketing you gave you right there.
Great marketing, beautiful marketing. All right, we had some random dudes almost stripping and dancing behind home plate. It
Of
was
course.
it was a beautiful game. Randy Rosarena made the second best catch I've ever seen live.
Oh,
The
that was
first one
insane.
being, if anyone can remember, the Stevie Wilkerson catch
Oh yeah.
back at the end of 2019. But that game
No,
had everything.
yeah, I remember the Stevie Wilkerson catch. I think I mentioned it on your show before.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the game in 2017 where Austin Jackson made the incredible catch and went basically went into the Red Sox bullpen. I remember seeing that live, and I just had to step. I literally stood up on my chair and I was like just clapping just out of pure respect for it. I was like, because like at that point, Austin Jackson, I was thinking of him from his Detroit Tigers days, and like in 2013, Austin Jackson was like pretty legit. By the
Mm-hmm.
time he got to the Cleveland Indians at this point, which is the team he made the catch for, when by the time he got to the Indians, a lot of people were just like he's just kind of at the end of the road now. He's basically just going from team to team. And he came out there, he made that catch, and everyone was just like, man, this guy still has something. Oh my god. And it was I really liked seeing it because it looked like a guy, because you're able to see a guy whose career you basically thought was kind of over, get a second shot at, again, kind of get a little bit of a second life with that play. And that's the play of his life now. And that's I mean, I remember it was the number one play of the 2017 season. I knew it the second I saw it. But
Mm-hmm.
it was, I mean, just beforehand, I really had never had like a Fenway Park experience like that. That is one of the all-time Fenway Park experiences, just that game, and just being able to witness great plays like that in baseball. That's what you go to the games for.
Absolutely. And at the game I was at, first of all, I've sat almost everywhere in
Yeah.
Fenway Park now. I've sat in the center field bleachers. I've sat right by the pesky pole. 2 times I sat right behind home plate,
Yeah.
and once was on the monster.
Okay.
So I've
Nice.
sat everywhere besides first row, and I was this close to spending $750 for 2 tickets right next to the Rays dugout. This
Jeez,
close. I almost did it.
really? That would have been crazy.
Would have
Yeah,
been a bad business decision, but
yeah.
worth it.
Let me ask you before we do kind of like dive into like a deep dive of the Red Sox and kind of their resurgence as of late. I haven't been, obviously haven't been back to Fenway yet. What was the experience of going in there with all like the COVID precautions? Kind of like was it very like sterile, or like how did they how did you kind of feel like going about Fenway? Did you get that authentic Fenway experience, or was it like, or did it feel kind of cheap?
So if I had
Not
to put
not
it
cheap, but I don't know. I don't know how to
just
phrase it.
different,
Yeah, different.
if I had to put it in perspective, right? Just imagine the Red Sox getting blown out in like the bottom of the seventh inning, and it's
Yeah.
like a beatdown, and that's
Oh
what
yeah.
Fenway looks like. Basically, when you go in, there are 5 different zones around the park that you need to go, and your ticket will tell you which one
Yeah.
you need to go. You need to have the MLB ballpark app downloaded. You will go to your zone. You will fill out a short health and safety questionnaire. You don't even need to provide a negative test. You just go up, fill out the questionnaire, show them. They'll say, okay, good. Go through the metal detectors, find your seat. And basically, every seat that is not being used is completely zip tied. You can't even put them down.
That's
So,
that's crazy.
yeah. So you can't just sit in random places. And it was
Yeah.
stupid for me because where me and my little sister were sitting, there were 2 seats together. And then like 6 feet until the next 2 seats. We were in like a back section behind home plate.
Yeah.
And they zip tied one of those 2 seats and put a folding chair next to the other one. And they made me sit there and zip tied the other. I'm like, why can't we just use
What?
both these seats?
Yeah,
So I
that's
literally
crazy.
watched the game on a folding chair.
Well, at least you can say, I mean, that's definitely an experience.
That was so dumb. I was so mad about it.
That
Then some
Yeah,
people
that is kind of
tried to.
BS.
Some people tried to sneak down to the first row at like the 5th inning. They got kicked out. And they're very,
Really?
very, yeah, they're very, very strict rules about where you can eat and all that stuff. You have to be sitting down at your seat to eat, and you can
Yeah.
only have your mask off when you are in the process of eating.
Jeez. Oh,
There are so many
me, I would just
precautions
probably
to
I
it.
would just have I would just always have a straw in my mouth and just breathing through it the entire time. Just
Honestly,
I would just be like, no, I'm drinking right now. I'm good. Like,
mhm.
that's insane, man.
Honestly, I
Yeah.
would too if sodas weren't $7.50 for just one soda.
Yeah, true. That
Too
that is
expensive.
very true. Yeah, you're getting ripped off every time you go into the ballpark.
Oh my god, chicken tenders and fries cost me $10.50. So there were 4 chicken tenders that had been sitting there for at least 2 hours and cold fries. $10.50. Not worth it.
Yeah, man, I just when I'm getting the ticket, I usually just have to add that into the equation. I'm like, well, this ticket's how much, but I'm really gonna be adding like probably another $30 to this.
Yep.
You know what the experience is gonna be. Like,
Honestly,
that's just unfortunately what it is.
the best thing to get there is just buy a whole pizza. It's $30
Ooh,
for the
true. That is,
pizza, but it's a decent sized pizza and
but
we'll get you through the whole game.
yeah, yes, and I mean, especially if you end up like bringing a group or something too, you can, and everyone pitches in, like you can make that work.
True, but the most you can bring is 4 people.
Yeah, well, that unfortunately is the COVID thing. Yeah.
It's sad.
Ugh. Yeah, it's tough. I'm hoping that by the summer they allow more people in. I mean, it does, from the TV view, it also does look like one of those seventh inning blowouts where fans are just saying screw it, I'm leaving.
It'll
It
slowly
also
go
looks
back to
like
normal.
one of those. Yeah, it also looks like one of those rain delay games
Hmm.
where where there's like a rain delay for like over like an hour and a half, and then instead of just canceling the game or like rescheduling it for another time, they actually do decide to say like, all right guys, we're gonna play here, and all the fans are just like, or at least most of them are just like, peace, I'm done with this.
Yep, exactly.
That's what it looks like to me as well.
Hmm.
But in terms of the way the Red Sox are playing this year, we were saying it. It was a very ugly series against that Baltimore Orioles team. Just everything looked awful for the Red Sox. But they came out against the Rays. They swept them unbelievably to get us back to 500. And now we're down in Baltimore, and we just beat them. And I'm just like, what switch just flipped? So, you know, What do you kind of expect out of these guys this year? Do you think it's going to be this kind of, up down roller coaster year, or do you think that we will have some trajectory?
I think there's going to be some points where I say I hate this team with a full on passion. And I will
Yeah.
be like, screw this team, screw everything it stands for, screw the pitching. But I think there'll be some points like right now where I'm like, this team is unbeatable when we're on. You know, this
Yeah.
team is going to have those ups and downs. In my opinion, out of 162 games, we're winning 77
At least.
max. I
Really?
got
You're going
very
max
low
on that?
hopes for this team. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, I saw all the I saw, a bunch of Red Sox optimists basically saying like, "Oh, we can ride this thing out for a wild card spot," but I'm just like, I don't think we have the pitching for it right now.
Oh my
A-Rod
god.
did come back for us,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's been our problem. Oh, what's up?
No, there's other Red Sox podcasts with guys around my age called the Gone Bridge podcast. Right. Had them on my show.
Yeah,
Love those
I've
guys. They're
talked to those
great.
guys.
Screw those guys. All right. Because they have more listeners than I do. All right. Screw them. But they put out their predictions for how many wins they were going to have. And this one guy in there, Steve, said
Yeah.
96. I'm like, Steve,
Bro.
are you sober? Do we need to get help?
Oh my goodness. Steve, what the hell are you on, dude? We are not winning 96 games at least. Even how good of this, even, no matter how good this little run that we're on feels, I still know we're not winning 96 games. Are you
Hell
kidding me?
no.
That is insane.
Bro, he was
I
on
mean,
something.
I wish we could have yeah, I wish we could have a 96 win team this year. That'd be fun. That'd be fun to have, but I'm realistic. Ever since we shipped off Mookie, I knew it. I knew things weren't looking hot. And,
Mhm.
frankly, I still have questions as to what Heim Bloom can do for this team. I do think, I mean, I know what he was brought in for, and I know I know it's, not going to be the favorable thing. Dombrowski, when you get him, it's like getting a new toy, and like he's going to do like everything that you want as a baseball fan. He's going to get rid. Well, listen, hear me out. He's going to get rid of those for the whatever baseball fans. He's going to get rid of those prospects that you've never heard of, and he's going to get those big stars, and he's going to go for it. And in two instances, with Miami and Boston, it worked. Detroit, prayers up to them, because I'm hoping that's not us soon, because we have more money than them. But
Mhm.
Heim Bloom was brought in basically to clean up the mess afterwards, and I'm hoping that he doesn't do it, that he's able to do it correctly,
Mhm.
because we also have a ton of money too. That's the thing. It's not like
Yes.
we're the Kansas City Royals, and this is going to be and this is going to take a long time before we can recover from this. We are the Boston Red Sox. When you think of payroll in baseball, it either goes the Dodgers, the Yankees, those two always flip flop, and then it's us. And you know, Heim has still spent some money. Like we still, I think, we still have a ton of money on the books for these guys. So it's not like we put this team together for like less than $100 million. Like we put serious money into this team. So I do hope that we can actually, we can actually get a solid product out of these guys fairly soon.
Man, I really hope so. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
I hated Dombrowski. All right. Dombrowski and Phillies fans will understand this in the coming 2 years. Dombrowski is the guy that
Oh
comes
yeah.
in, trades off everyone, and you will win a championship by 2022. I'm expecting next year
Yeah.
for them to make their insane push, and they might win the World Series next year. And then after that, it's going to go all downhill. 2023, they're going to miss the playoffs. 2024, they're going to be a bottom three team in the league. But with
I mean, the
Heim,
Philadelphia Phillies, I don't, yeah. Oh, go
um,
ahead.
with Heim, I really think that he is going to be. He's going to build this team the same way he did the Rays, and that's just build from the ground
Yeah.
up. Right? He's going to find his guys, and obviously he's proven that he's found some of those guys, aka Garrett Whitlock being one of them. Right? Everyone, so many people at the Rule 5 draft said you're going to waste your fourth overall pick on a guy who has not played over Double A. He's 2 years away from being ready. That's what every single scout said. Yet this dude, let me
Yeah.
just look up Garrett Whitlock's stats real quick. He's pitched 3 times, I think, but they were very good 3 times. Let me just see.
Yeah.
My computer wanted to load. And trust me, so far a .3 WAR, 0 ERA, 5.1 innings pitched, and a WHIP of .56.
Not too shabby for the young kid.
Not
Now
shabby
he's
at
on
all. Dude's
fire.
only 25. Right.
Yeah.
He didn't even play last year. And that's what people were saying. Like, you're gonna get a guy who hasn't played in a year and a half. And Heim said,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, listen, Whitlock was a hit. I'm definitely not gonna knock him for that. Heim hit it out of the park with Whitlock. He looks like he's really legit. But it is just those other guys that I am kind of iffy on. Like obviously Richards, when we could have, gotten a guy instead, we could have probably gotten Corey Kluber for around the same contract, which that still bugs me because I'm just like, oh, the Yankees got like basically a two-time they did get a two-time Cy Young Award winner, where we get a guy who can barely keep it together at this point. That there are moves like
You
that
know.
that get me. Also the pickups of guys Matt Andrees, that still kind of gets me. Those type of moves are just like moves where it just really kills you, and you're like, you got to be kidding me. Other guys too that I'm trying to figure out right now are this guy obviously has been surprising me. If anyone listened to my Wednesday show with with the Fumblerooski boys, they actually work, for anyone who doesn't know, they're actually a part of this guy's sports network, Amateur Hour Sports Network.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Wright gave of he really sounded off at Franchi Cordero. He has some heavy opinions on that guy. And I did too. When we traded Benny off, I knew that he hadn't been performing to the best level, lately. But I knew what he had been able to do in the past, and if you could, tap into that, maybe there was something there. Whereas, you go out and you get Franchi Cordero, a guy that's only 53 days younger than him, and he's a 210 hitter. So I definitely had my concerns as well.
Mm-hmm. Man, absolutely. And it's with Benny, Adam, and I really disagree. Cordero hasn't gotten off to the best start, but like I said, I'm going to give him time. I'm going to give it a couple weeks before I truly make any bad judgments on anyone that's not named Garrett Richards or Ryan Brazier, because screw Ryan Brazier. But let me just say, you mentioned Matt Andrees, right? Screw that guy. All right. Because look at this. All right. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but these are DMs that I have with Matt Andrees. Okay.
Yeah.
And basically, this was the day that he signed or got signed. I think he signed here. And I said, hey, Matt, I just want to say we are so excited that you landed in Boston. Really looking forward to seeing what you can do with this team. Welcome to Beantown. He says, thanks. We appreciate it. Really excited to join the Sox. Then I said, also, if you want to come on the show and talk about it, talk about your expectations with this team, that invite is always going to be out there. Left me through that guy.
Left you on red. God damn.
And he pitched the game that I was in, that I went to, and walked the bases loaded. Screw that guy. And then Phillips Valdez came in and it was Darwinson. Darwinson Hernandez came in and he made Darwinson look bad. So, I'm sorry I keep going off topic, but quick story about that. So
you're good. You're good.
Like I said, bases were loaded. There was one out. We wanted Darwinson to come in, ground ball, double play. We out of there.
Yeah.
The score was 7-0, so it's not like we were worried. But Darwinson comes in, first batter, 5-pitch walk, run scores. Mm-hmm. Second batter, 4-pitch walk, run scores. Everybody starts booing the crap out of Darwinson. Next batter, he throws a strike and he gets a standing ovation. Boston fans are such jerks, and I love it.
A good old Bronx cheer in Boston. Gotta love it. Yeah. Well, if there wasn't another reason, there were plenty of reasons for me to dislike Matt Andrees, beforehand, and this just kind of does it for me. So, thanks for giving me a little extra.
Screw that guy, okay?
Yeah, thanks for giving me a little extra fuel there, buddy. But also with the Red Sox, I had mentioned it. Eduardo Rodriguez is back for this team, and it's the first time he's back, on a mound since 2019. We didn't really realize that at the time, but apparently when he got COVID in like spring training, he actually had some really bad reactions to it. He had like some heart inflammation. I guess for a little bit of time he really couldn't walk. Like it was like apparently he had some terrible like side effects from COVID. And it was like, and a lot of people like really didn't realize it. And it was like one of those like, oh my gosh moments when you found out like how serious it was for him. He got back on the mound today. Well, not today, but previously against the O's, and he had 5 innings pitched, 7 Ks, didn't walk anybody, and he was able to be a part of that dub. What do you think of do you think Rodriguez can return to form?
So I'm kind of split here.
Yeah.
Okay. On one half, I am like, let's not rush this guy.
Yeah.
Don't expect the world out of him. Let him pitch when he's feeling good enough to pitch.
Yeah.
Just let him ride it out as he feels. Do not rush this guy. He hasn't pitched in a year and a half. No problems with that. On the other hand, I drafted him on my fantasy team, and I need him to do well, and I need him to pitch a lot. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. On my fantasy team, I drafted a lot of Red Sox players.
Nice.
I have JD, I have Kike, Garrett Whitlock, Erod, Garrett Richards. That one was a mistake, and there's one more that I'm forgetting.
Did you already drop Richards?
Nah, but soon. Expect that very soon.
Makes sense.
But yeah, like I want him for sake of this team, leaving out fantasy reasons. I want him to come back slow. I don't care if he just doesn't do well. I just want him to get back used to the mound, and anything that we can get out of him is productive at this point. You know,
and I kind of view the same thing. I think what we're seeing from Eduardo Rodriguez right now in terms of starts right now is kind of bonus. If this was kind of a normal year and not really COVID, and you had like some actual minor league seasons, I feel like you definitely see him in some AA, possibly some AAA games. I know at least right now the Woo Sox, they actually. I don't believe they're getting their season started until like May. So if they had originally gotten started around this time, which they normally would, then you probably would have seen Eduardo Rodriguez do at least a couple rehab starts down there, get situated. But when he's just doing bullpens in Worcester, it's really not going to do too much for him. I mean, it's like what does it matter? Why does it matter what bullpen you're on if it's not really making a difference? So
exactly.
I think, yeah, I agree with you. Taking it slow with Eduardo Rodriguez is definitely the way we want to go here because, again, the MLB season, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, you got to take it easy with these guys. And and if we can get him back and, maybe even get Sale back after the All-Star break. But I know what Sale is probably going to look like after the All-Star break. I'll get into that in a sec. But, if we can work Eduardo Rodriguez back to what he was, previously, I'd love to see it. And that's what we need to see.
100%. And I'm gonna have the same opinion with Sale. You pitch him when he's ready. All right. Yeah. This is a very major injury that we're talking about. This is nothing slight. This was a very major injury. He might only come back to 80% of the player he was. Obviously not worth the contract we gave him, but you got to go into every contract that you sign, that you put your that you put your name on, knowing that injury might happen. Yeah. I apologize to all your fans if they can hear random freshmen screaming. Screw those guys also.
Do not worry about it. I've had way more audio problems on this show. But trust me, if you go back and listen to some earlier episodes, it's very apparent.
Trust me. I had one. I'll say this story real quick because I know we're running on time. But I had this guy.
You're fine.
I had this guy from the Mariners organization. His name is Travis Kuhn. Haven't kept in touch with him. I really should have. But I had him on the show, and it was going good till about 10 minutes in. And then his audio started cutting in and out where I would lose him for about 2 to 3 seconds at a time. His Wi-Fi was so bad, right? But then his Wi-Fi started to get better. And then all you hear on my end, I ask him, like, everybody has a different draft day story. What was your draft day like, right? And all you hear from my end is my mother banging on my door and screaming that she needed the laptop charger that I was using. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me right now. So I have to tell him, like, can you excuse me for 2 seconds? Run out there, give my mother the laptop charger. She didn't know I was running a podcast at the time because at the time she would have thought it was insanely stupid. I never told her. I'm like, I'm really sorry. I'm very busy right now. I'm on a video call. Run back into my room. And then after that, I had all my questions on my phone. And I didn't know it. But with this cheap $30 microphone that you get from Walmart, if you put a phone next to it, the stat or something will happen with the mic where it will spaz the hell out. So then that started happening for the remaining 15 minutes of the interview.
Well, it's
so bad.
Rookie mistakes. It happens to the best of us. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I was only like 15 episodes in at the time. That stuff's going to happen. Yeah, I've buried that episode deep in the
archives. Absolutely. But I hope that Erod can return to form, and with Sale too. I'm really looking for what he can do in 2022. That's my big thing with Sale.
Mhm.
But that's kind of what we that's kind of some of the takes I wanted to get, especially out of you with the Red Sox. In other MLB news, there were some pretty big stories that broke, that we talked about on Wednesday, but there was also some things that just were very recent as well. I don't know if you saw the Mets. I believe it was Marlins game. It was the Mets were at the bat. Michael Conforto, Mets outfielder, is at the plate, and I can't remember the name of the Marlins pitcher. I think his last name is Bass, and he throws a pitch. Great name for a
A
pitcher.
Marlins pitcher, yeah.
Stephen A. I'm not. That is not an original take. Stephen A. Smith said that, so I will give him credit for that. But he throws a pitch legitimately right over the middle of the plate. Like we were saying this before the show, it's right over the middle of the plate. And Conforto, he just takes his elbow, leans right in, takes it right off the elbow guard. Game over.
Soft.
Game over. Mets win. It's it's literally Miguel Tabata all over again,
No, so
or
here's the thing.
Jose Tabata, not Miguel Tabata.
Here's the thing with that play. Right, and this is what pisses me off.
Yeah,
You play to win the game, but you play the game right.
yeah.
Right? If he wants to lean in and do that, that is completely his decision. But rule states there are two rules that the umpire did not follow here. A, you need to make an attempt to get out of the way of the ball. You cannot just stand there and take it. You need to turn your back, try and move, something to show intent of getting out of the way of the ball. Second, it does not matter if the ball hits you. If the ball was in the strike zone, which it was beautifully painted over the
Oh,
inside black corner,
perfect.
beautifully painted. That's strike three. We going. These fans are watching some free baseball.
Yeah, exactly. No, 100% with you. And just the hit by pitch to either, win the game or, I was talking about Jose Tabata. For anyone who doesn't know that, Max Scherzer was pitching a perfect game for the Washington Nationals. I believe it was 2 outs in the ninth, if I'm correct. Literally, Tabata's at the plate and he leans across the plate on a pitch that, it was a ball, but it was not going to be, but it was a pitch that he easily could have avoided. And he leans into it, gets hit by the pitch, ends the perfect game bit. Luckily, Scherzer still gets the no hitter, but that is just one of the plays in baseball that you just wish there was something you could do about it. I mean, also my main thing about that is 100% too. The umpire Ron Culpa should have made that call. Unfortunately, the name Ron Culpa is too well known of a name for me. My my
So
my big thing with baseball is that unfortunately, if you know the umpire's name, that doesn't mean that's never a
that's
good
not good for the umpire.
that's never a good thing for the umpire.
Unless your name is Jim Joyce. Jim Joyce isn't too bad.
Yeah, and I mean he did have the Jose Galarraga play.
I was about to say we're going to talk about Galarraga, but
he
at the
did
very least with Jim Joyce, I will
he
say
he
this:
he manned up and he
he
admitted that he was wrong.
1,000% manned up. First, he went to the media and said, I got to go up to him and apologize to that man. I ruined the best game of his life.
No, yeah.
You know, because those bad calls, they happen to the best of them.
Yeah.
You can do your job perfect, but you're going to mess up every now
Oh,
and then.
100%.
And
No,
he did. He owned up to it. And they even wrote a book about it. Those two
really.
teamed up and wrote a book, which is the
Really.
funniest thing.
That's actually crazy. No, and I mean 100% respect to Jim Joyce. I mean, obviously, like, I mean, he's obviously famous for that call, but I do know that he manned up and he went and he basically said like, "Hey, I'm so sorry that I did this to this kid." He felt terrible after that, and to have the respect to at least not kind of like stick your nose up in the air and act like you're all that, and to actually show that you have that type of humility. I respect that. But in terms of umpires where you just, the name automatically sets you off, you think of Jerry Meals. That's one for me. Ron Culpa. I
Angel Hernandez.
Well, yeah, I was gonna get to Angel Hernandez. Ron Culpa, it's like, that's obviously now gonna be a call that's tied to Culpa, but he was just kind of one of those guys for me. But 100% Angel Hernandez just is that guy, unfortunately. I mean, it's literally like a comedy sketch when he's actually calling a baseball game. You don't
Mhm.
expect it to be as bad as it is.
Oh my God.
Like like you would
I
expect
can't
it.
remember.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, let me take it real quick. You for an umpire this bad, you'd expect like some non-baseball fans just to go, hey, you guys are just nitpicking every single bad call this guy makes, and you're turning it into this big thing. But no, spring training games, like everything like this, and people are just saying that he's already in mid-season form, like he literally
He's
can't
known
even.
for it.
Exactly. Like he's known for being a bad umpire. Players do not when players show up to a series and they see Angel Hernandez, is on that, is on the umpire crew, they actually like I've heard that they actually get upset because they hear that this guy is going to be umping that game.
Hmm. And we're not even going to talk about the Yankees Red Sox series in 2018 where he got
Oh
three
my
calls wrong at first base.
oh my
One of
goodness.
two of them can be debated. One of them was bang bang.
Yeah.
Those types of calls are going to happen.
Yeah,
No
it's
problem
a
with that one. The
human
second
element of the
one,
game.
the
Human element of
second
the game.
one was a little closer. Should have been called correctly, but replay review got it right. So in the end, nothing, no harm, no foul. The third one wasn't even close.
No.
Oh my god, the third one he had him beat by a full step, and oh my god, players were ready to fight Hernandez at that point. And I can't remember what ump it was, but during this week during games, there was one pitch that was literally right down the heart of the plate, a little high but still well in the strike zone. Called it a ball, and the two commentators just paused for a second, like, "Are you kidding me right now?"
Yeah, no. It's so embarrassing when you see what he actually does when he actually does in the game. I mean, it actually is laughable. Like you actually like if you had to write a script about an umpire being this bad, like Hollywood directors would turn it away and they would just be like it's too unrealistic. No one would believe it.
Exactly. Hmm.
Like they would think it's like the from the Naked Gun movies. Like it just wouldn't be a thing.
No, absolutely. Like, let me ask you this: who is worse, Angel Hernandez or Joe Buck?
I can take Joe Buck actually. I mean, like, listen, the thing about Joe Buck, I think that a lot of people don't like is that there's like really no authenticity with him. At least that's what I think a lot of people have problems with. Like, you listen to like play calls from like the 80s and 90s, and like each player or each announcer rather had like their each kind of unique style for like calls and stuff like that. With Buck, it's a very just generic kind of sounding thing, and I feel like that's where a lot of people get at him for. And I mean, listen, I have no problem with a guy being generic. I mean, I know that at this point, a lot of people do hate on him, so I actually can take a little bit of Joe Buck, and he seems like a all right enough guy that I don't have as much of a problem with him. It's 100% Angel Hernandez in my mind, though. I mean, I originally was always kind of was never that hard on umpires, but after seeing the way he called that 2018 game, I have officially been on the anti Angel Hernandez party for forever at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I'm 100% there. I'm pretty sure you can't find a true baseball fan right now that said, I would like Angel Hernandez to be an umpire for one of my games.
Yeah. So you want to possibly lose this game on one of his calls? Great.
Hmm.
Like
Nah.
unless you're paying him, unless I mean if you're paying Angel Hernandez, then maybe you could maybe there's an advantage to it. But if not, then there's really no reason why you would want him in a game.
What was the call where I can't remember what game this was, but it was the bottom of the ninth. One out or no outs. Bases were loaded. I remember the Pirates were one of the
Yes,
teams.
that was
There's the
Jerry Meals.
that was Jerry Meals.
That was Jerry Meals.
Oh,
Yes.
that was the worst call I've ever seen.
Yes.
Just completely.
Pirates Braves, correct?
Hmm.
Yep, yeah, and then the guy slides into home plate and like comes up. Uh, from what I heard from Meals, like when you actually kind of watch a replay of it for a sec, it looks extremely apparent that like he was out, or yeah, that he was out at the plate. And Meals basically said like, hey, Meals basically said the catcher laid him and kind of missed the tag with it. And when you look at it in like at high speed, it is like it's like what is this guy seeing? When you do slow it down, you still see him get it, but like for a split second, like a lot of baseball fans, like I saw like a comprehensive like deep dive into it, and this guy just goes, oh my god, he may have been right. Like people were just like, oh my god, he was right, but like no, it
No.
it's still one of those plays, but it did almost kind of look like he laid him a little bit there, and that's I guess what Jerry Mills called it on. But that's Jerry Mills' call. Angel Hernandez has about 10 calls for every one bad call.
Hmm.
It just comes with the territory at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, it's all good. Don't mind those freshmen. It's all good, man.
I hate
Uh,
freshmen with a passion. Why my senior year? Okay, my fans have heard this a million times. I need to tell your fans.
oh,
They
you're good.
decided to put me. I am an RA at my school,
Yeah.
and I am the second longest tenured RA on this campus. And they decided to put me in a freshman dorm. I don't know why I didn't quit.
I mean,
Lord help me.
you should have just waited for the check to clear.
Yeah, exactly. I needed a signing bonus to deal with this.
Pretty much. That's
Man,
rough, dude. Ugh. But that. But I mean, those MLB umps just they're again that's my philosophy. If you know the guy by his name, then he's not a great ump.
exactly.
That's my whole thing. I mean, there are some umps at lower levels that I absolutely I have the utmost respect for. Those lower level umpires that and officials that I know, uh, you know utmost respect for some of those guys. Maybe there's some that I do have some, opinions against, but some of the ones that I know personally, love them.
Mm.
But also in MLB news, you know, one of MLB's, favorite guys around the league, Trevor Bauer, is getting into a little bit of controversy right here. Apparently, the MLB is investigating him for possibly using illegal substances on baseballs. I guess a bunch of baseballs were sent into, MLB offices to be investigated. They were all balls that Bauer was using. And a lot of people are wondering: is MLB trying to single out Trevor Bauer right now? Is this MLB trying to get their revenge on Trevor Bauer? Dave Roberts, manager of the LA Dodgers, where Bauer signed this offseason, thinks so. So, do you think that's plausible?
It depends. I think it might be plausible, but in all honesty, we need Jared Carrabis to make a deep dive on this.
Yes,
We need Jared
hundred
Carrabis.
percent.
We need Carrabis to just DM and just be like, "Yo, this true?" That's another reason why I hate the Gombrich Boys because they're friends with Jared Carrabis. All right, we was doing the whole fantasy draft for the podcast baseball fantasy draft, and
Yeah,
those guys had their own live stream going,
yeah, I saw
and
it.
just casually brought Jared Carrabis in. I was pissed.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, you got to be. I mean, I didn't join like before he came in. I joined and he was already in there. I'm just like, what the heck? I was like, you got to be kidding me. That was
Makes me
absolute. It was absurd, man. It was
makes me
absurd.
upset.
Ugh.
I want to be friends with Jared Carrabis. Like,
Same here. Same here.
I don't care if he swears and my show's PG. I'll make an exception.
Exactly. Same here. I mean, I can. It's an easy switch for me to make a show explicit. I do not give a damn. I am
Mm.
100% for it. But you know, I think it definitely could be an attack for MLB. I mean, I don't want to I don't want to be conspiratorial here, but I think that MLB 100% has some animus towards Bauer, especially the way that he has attacked them over the years. Now,
Mm.
now I know. I mean, I originally, did not like Trevor Bauer, and during his earlier days with the Indians, and the reason for it was I remember it was during I think the 2015 playoffs or whenever the Indians were facing off against the Blue Jays, and I heard a story that Trevor Bauer at this time I had just known him as like just one of the other Indians pitchers behind Corey Kluber. And I just hear Trevor Bauer injures or basically like, slices pitching hand playing with his drone. And I'm just like, this guy's a freaking idiot.
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy's a moron. And I'm just like, I'm like, and like, he went out of the, I'll give him credit. He went out on the mound with like some stitches in his hand. He actually tried to pitch. I don't know if he made it through one or two innings, but then the stitching started to fall apart. And, like it just started to be like his hand was just, covered in blood. It was
Mhm.
ridiculous. And and people were people were saying like, well, it's courageous that he went out there. It's kind of like the bloody sock game that he was able to
Oh.
that he was able to come out. Like I was seeing this like people were like, I mean, the fact that he even came out there and did that, and I'm just like, Kurt Schilling, the bloody sock game was because Kurt Schilling, literally injured himself, and the stitching, from that, caused the socks to bleed.
Mhm.
Kurt Schilling didn't go out water skiing and then hit like a pole or something. It's not like that happened in that, and that's why the bloody sock game happened. It was like it was a natural injury, and like when people were trying to make that comparison, I was just like, stop, this is ridiculous.
Mhm. Man.
But I will say now I love Trevor Bauer. Gotta love me
Mhm.
some Trevor Bauer. He is completely. I have the narrative for me for with him and me. Have completely flipped. I hope that this is all fake, and I hope that he just gets back on the mound and continues to do his thing.
Mhm. Man, I don't know about Bauer. Like, if he would have signed with the Sox, I would have done a 180 on it. But he's one of those guys that I don't have like any opinion for. He's just kind of there. Great pitcher. We'll never doubt that. But I'll never just be like, I love the guy.
I'm in the I love the guy status just because he was able to just because he was willing to be a voice against Manfred. That's what I
Mhm.
always liked about him. Because, I've said on many times on this show, Rob Manfred is the reason this game is getting ruined. And maybe, you can talk about the other executives, making decisions, and Rob Manfred is just the punching bag behind the scenes that, takes all the blowback. You can make that argument too. But, Trevor Bauer has stood up to guys like Manfred and, stood up to bad play calls. And that's, where I kind of like that passion coming in. So I'll say that. But in other MLB news, before we do end up transitioning here, one of the superstars across MLB right now has been Shohei Ohtani of the Los Angeles Angels. When he came over, we had heard it. We had heard of this pitching and hitting phenom, and it was just gonna be like this. There's no way that'll last here. Maybe in an NL game or something, we'll get to see him, and maybe he does. Maybe there's some magic there. But he's gonna have to pick one or the other. And it turns out,
Mhm.
no,
No,
he actually might not have to. I mean, and I guess I don't know if it was his last start or one of his last starts. Uh, he hit, I believe he hit 101 on the gun, and then he went up to bat that very next
hit
inning.
115. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize this. That is the hardest hit home run of the Statcast era by the Los Angeles Angels, and don't forget and don't forget Mike Trout has played in the Statcast era, and he's basically only played in the Statcast era, and Justin Upton has played in the Statcast era. Anthony Rendon, has some power himself, has played in the Statcast era. Yet basically the starting pitcher for that game has the hardest hit home run for the Los Angeles Angels since they have started recording that type of speed. It's absolutely wild.
Jeez, that I don't know. And he's one of those guys that very much confuses me. It's gonna be an age old question as long as he's in the league. Does he need to pick one, or
Yeah.
can we go back to the Babe Ruth days?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and in my opinion, it all depends on his durability.
Yeah. I mean, we've
Yeah.
seen some questions about it so far.
If he can hold up and he can keep his durability going, I see no problem with it. I just have a problem with his arm.
Yeah.
Because if he's going to do both, I highly, highly suggest just be a DH.
Yes. 100%. Do not
Yeah,
put him in the outfield. Do not risk any injury like that. Make him your DH.
exactly.
Yeah. But the thing that just sucks though is that he's on the Angels. I mean, it's the same thing that it's the same problem for Mike Trout. I mean, I don't it wouldn't I mean I wouldn't want him to be a Yankee, but baseball would be better for it if he was on a team like the Yankees. I mean
Hell no.
baseball would be better for it if he was on a team like New York, just because of the name
Absolutely
recognition.
not.
If he was on the
Absolutely
Dodgers,
not.
he was on the Dodgers, that name recognition would be better. I'm just saying it to have that type of name recognition. That's where I wouldn't want him to be on that team. Hell no, I'm 100% against that. But if he was on a team like that, it would make all the difference, I think, for baseball and would
No, it
really
wouldn't.
get some eyes on.
No, it would not.
Really,
Let me ask you this.
yeah.
Last year in the playoffs, were you not saying, I have never been a fan of this team, but screw it, I'm going to root for the Miami Marlins? Remember their playoff run last year?
I mean, I have my D Gordon jersey already hanging, so I don't know if you can
Yeah.
call me not a fan of the Miami
There
Marlins.
was
I
there
have
was
a jersey.
not a fan of baseball, of Major League Baseball, a true fan in the world who wouldn't have said last year, I want to root for the small market team because they don't win. People were just like, I know they're probably not going to win, but it would be awesome if the small market Tampa Bay Rays won against the big and mighty Los Angeles Dodgers. The best teams just get better. It's like college basketball right
No,
now for
that's the thing. Here's the thing: if the Los Angeles Angels were good, which they have a shot to really make a difference this year. It's not that I don't have a problem with big players and small market teams. Is that the Angels as a franchise, they haven't made the playoffs since 2014, and before that, they've just unfortunately just haven't really been able to make some significant damage of the playoffs. If the Angels were just one of those teams that hung around there and they kind of were, and them and the A's kind of flipped kind of their success, and they were kind of in it, every now and then, maybe go into a little rebuild every now and then, but
Mhm.
kind of do it. I'd be for it. I like there'd be no problem with it, especially since you're in LA. But the problem is that the product just does not get to the postseason where the ratings just are exponentially higher.
Absolutely, man. But at the same
That's
time,
the problem. If the Angels were in it, I would 100% say it doesn't matter what team you're on. Like that's the thing. The problem is that you're just if your market isn't going to develop that into that, if your market just and well not your market, but if your team just can't be that, then it's not going to do you any well.
mhm. But I am always a fan. I will always say this till the day I die. if the Red Sox don't win a World Series in a year, if they don't make the playoffs, or the
Yeah.
second they're out of the playoffs, I'm rooting for the smallest market team in there to make it. Just because you don't see it often.
No,
All
I
right,
mean,
you see Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, White Sox. Those are the big teams. All right.
yeah.
It was amazing to watch the Giants go on. What, they went 3 in 5 years?
Yeah, 2010, 12, and 14. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 in 5 years. So it was amazing to see that, and they're a smaller market team. I can't wait for one of the days where the Royals or the Blue Jays, even though they're an interdivision rival. Who else? The Tigers, the Pirates. I
The
can't wait
Royals
for
did get theirs in 15, so they did get there.
exactly.
And
And
I
even the
felt
Reds. Screw the
yeah.
Reds. They do nothing, actually.
Yeah, they've just been, kind
They're
of
just there.
yeah, they just exist, and frankly, which is unfortunate because you think of the Big Red Machine, how effective they were. Cincinnati just has kind of been screwed with sports in general.
Nah, listen. There are two teams that I will consistently make fun of on my show till the day the show ends. That is the Baltimore Orioles and the Cincinnati Reds.
Mhm.
Just because they suck, they don't do
Yeah,
anything. The second the Orioles get something good, expect Trey Mancini to either be traded or gone by free agency.
yeah.
It's sad reality.
Yeah. What I hope that, if the Angels can be a successful team and, he isn't, and they actually, again, if they're able to make a playoff push, then it doesn't matter what team you're on. You're in the playoffs and you're going to get eyes
Mhm.
on you. But what I'm hoping is that if the Angels over the next coming years are able to really become one of those competitive teams in the AL West, I'm wondering, could the Shohei Ohtani effect kind of be like what Boston fans kind of had with Pedro back in like the 90s, where it was just this phenomenon, with
Mhm.
Pedro, anytime Pedro was pitching for the Red Sox, it was an event, and like
Yes.
it was a cultural event just going on. Like it was like you did not want to miss a Pedro start when he was here in Boston. I hope that
Garrett
Shohei
Whitlock's
Ohtani.
going to be that next thing.
I hope so.
Heard it
I
here first.
I hope so. Well, that's for sure. You we definitely heard it here first. But if Shohei Ohtani could be one of those, just different kind of things that you see on a baseball field, because we really haven't seen this since the Babe Ruth era. If we could see this on a baseball field, it would do so much for the game, just because of how different it is.
Mhm. Honestly, though, I'm going to say it. Zach Greinke could have been the next one.
Yeah.
Zach Greinke, if the Royals would have said, because I just watched like a mini documentary on this about Zach Greinke's career
Yeah.
yesterday. If they would have said, you know what? Because when he was in the minors, he said, I want to stop pitching. I want to become a shortstop. Send me back down to the minors. Let me learn how to be a shortstop. They
Yeah.
said, hell no. You're one of the best pitchers in the MLB. You're not becoming a shortstop.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have just said, but we'll let you hit every couple days.
Yeah.
We'll let you
Exactly.
go in and hit,
Yeah. Give him a shot. I
But
mean,
they never really did.
yeah. I mean, he's a pretty solid pitch. I mean, a pretty solid hitter too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That would have
I
been
mean,
awesome to see, man. But I hope that Shohei Ohtani can be one of those guys. I really do. And I hope that the durability holds up and he could just be one of those guys. That is what I'm praying for.
100%. It's all about his durability. Because I still remember, I was in my dorm room in New Jersey my first year, and I heard about this guy going to the Angels. Like, oh, he's both a pitcher and an outfielder. He can do
Yeah.
both. And I'm like, this guy's gonna change the game, 100%. Want the Red Sox to get him so bad, but they signed that huge deal with the Angels. And then we had this one pitcher. What was his name from Japan? Oh, what was his name?
Not
The real
Matsuzaka?
No, not Daisuke. Just last off season. It's this big
Oh,
guy,
Hirokazu Sawamura.
not Sawamura. There was another
Oh,
one.
well then,
Bigger than Sawamura, much bigger.
well then,
And
shoot.
it was between the Red Sox and the Padres they wanted to go to, and he ended up staying in Japan. He didn't want to come to the Red Sox because it was too cold.
Of course.
Weak.
That's the one thing Boston will never be able to live down. It's always too cold.
Oh, just as Blue Jays fans.
Yeah, true.
Oh my God! If they ever held the World Series in Toronto in the early November,
You could have the Stanley Cup Finals on the side.
oh my God! Basically,
Yeah, it's insane.
jeez.
Yeah. But that kind of covers what we have in MLB news for the night. Before we do go down to the wire, I want to touch on two things over in the NFL, and then we will be on our way. But in NFL news, Tom Brady, former Patriot. I hate that I have to refer to him like that, but the now 7-time Super Bowl champion, recently went on Good Morning America, and he actually said that, and he basically said, he said, when you're in one place for 20 years, you think that there's only one way. And I think when you go to a different place, you realize, wow, there's another way to doing things. And basically said that the Patriot way, it's great. It got me 6 rings, but I'm able to have a little fun and win too. So this is definitely a dig at Belichick for kind of being the no fun zone. But what do you think? What do you think of this?
I, as much as I hate to say it, I 100% agree. There are
Yeah,
multiple ways on winning a championship. It can depend on just moral strategies or just strategies when it comes to the game. I mean, shifting over to the NBA a little bit, I mean, San Antonio Spurs were the Patriots. No fun, we're going to get the job done. But then you
yeah,
have teams like the 2012 Heat, who just won off a start, complete and utter star power. You
yeah.
have teams like the 2011 Mavericks, who won their thing based off of one superstar player. You have the 1986 Chicago Bears, who it was a defensive minded team. There are plenty of different ways to win a championship, plenty of different morale ways. And
Hmm.
that was the way that worked for the Bucks, the way their roster was put together.
Yeah,
And
hundred
so
percent.
I 100% agree with what he was saying. The
Yeah,
way the Patriots roster was, especially with the coach, mainly with the coach, but that was the way it worked for us.
yeah.
It can work a million different ways for any other team.
Hmm. No, I mean, it definitely hurts to hear him say that, especially after all the success we had here. But it is true, you can win in other ways. However, I do think that you look at the Patriots and you look at the Spurs and you look at how it was able to work over a long time. Yes, I think you can have that kind of fun and then do your thing. But I think you get yourself a very narrow window with it. I think you can get yourself maybe even 3 championships out of it. Who knows what Brady could do in Tampa? But I think if you look at the prolonged winning that teams like the Spurs and teams like the Patriots have had over a long time, and even Alabama in college football, where it's
In the 60s Celtics.
yeah, true, 100%. And where it's just very formulaic. Like it's like the personalities, sure they can be there, but we know what needs to be done, and you go into it like that. I think that is probably the best way that you can do it. Again, there are other ways, but I think that eventually, if you do want to do that, I think there is a old fashioned sense that you do eventually have to revert back to. We'll see how that works with Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid is kind of a bit of a hybrid where he's been old school, but he's also learned some new tricks in his later years. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. That's where I want to see if that plays out. If Brady and Tampa, this is just kind of a very short stint that I wonder how it works out. But if Mahomes can do this over a long period of time with the atmosphere that's down there, that will be more telling to me as to whether this can actually work out long term.
Mm-hmm. It all depends on the coach. All right.
Yeah.
In all honesty, Bruce Arians is not coaching that team. Like let's keep it completely honest with ourselves,
Yeah.
especially in the second half after Brady had that whole thing with Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah.
He literally went out there, went to the locker room, yelled at the defense a lot, said, "Defense, keep doing what you're doing. You're playing great. Get pressure on Patrick Mahomes." Coach the defensive side, but then went to Brady, went to his offensive coordinator, looked his offensive coordinator in the eye, and said, "You are not doing anything for the rest of the game. You can leave if you want. Brady, do whatever you want." And
My
that's about how the
goodness.
game went.
That's Tom Brady for you. That's exactly what you're going to get out of Tom Brady. And I mean, he has been, more than impressive in his time in Tampa. It's been very short, but he's been outstanding for them. And
Absolutely.
I wish that things had ended here better for the Patriot with him and the Patriots, but it looks like he is going to do damage down there for at least a good more couple years. So watch out, everybody.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, and our final story of the night, a little kind of, a little interesting story. The NFL is actually playing, at least from what I've been hearing, they're planning to ease some jersey restrictions across the league. And it looks like quarterback, punter, and kicker. It's going to be the same thing. You're not going to see a Doug Flutie 22, running around the field anytime soon.
Oh, come on. It's
You
Doug
know,
Flutie.
you'd
That's my
you'd
dude.
you'd think, right? You'd think you could see Doug Flutie. Maybe rocking number 22, even though he's like 60 now. But uh, you know, but unfortunately, you're not going to see that out of quarterbacks. But it does look like running backs are going to be able to wear single digit numbers. So some of the guys you think about, especially are guys like Derrick Henry, who, was famous for wearing number 2 with Alabama. And even when he came to the NFL in the preseason before things started, in the preseason, you're actually able to get away with a lot more kind of like, East jersey restrictions just because of how many guys you have on your team. The NFL is just like, whatever, but just fix it by the time the regular season starts. So in the
Hmm.
preseason of his rookie year, he wore 2, and then he switched to 20, and then he just added another 2 onto that by the time that ended. But looking at some of the requirements, running backs, it's like 1 to 49, and then 80 to 89 are the running back requirements. Defensive backs, so corners can wear numbers, or might be able to wear numbers 1 to 49. Linebackers 1 to 59 and 90 to 99. And then O lineman, it's pretty basic. It's like 50 to 79, and then same thing for D line. Plus,
Oh,
plus, plus,
really?
plus 90 to 99 for
I
the D
thought. Oh, I thought we were gonna have Chase Young rocking his number 2 again.
line.
That would be dope.
Yeah, that would have been dope. It's not getting to that point yet. Now, what do you kind of think about this? Now, it's very intriguing to me. Now, I know that, there are definitely some guys that, could, might look really solid. And I mean, I just said Derrick Henry in his number 2 would look pretty solid.
Hmm.
Justin Jefferson wearing number 2 would be pretty cool. Julian Edelman posted a Photoshop picture of him wearing number 1 on Instagram. Now, I don't know. I like the idea of allowing players to have a little more flexibility with it, but
Hmm.
I don't. But I mean, I don't know. It does aesthetically. It still is going to take a little bit before I fully get on board with that.
Mm. It'll take a little bit getting used to, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
But I think it'll be okay in a couple of years.
Yeah, with college, I'm used to it. I mean, you'll see quarterbacks. I remember for Michigan, they literally had a quarterback wearing number 97. I was like, okay, great.
You had a defensive lineman, top of the country, wearing number 2. Like I said.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll see those kind of jersey restrictions. Be very easy in college football. There's basically none. But in the NFL, I don't know. From an aesthetic standpoint, I still kind of am a little iffy on it. But I mean, it could be very exciting to see some guys come in and rock their college numbers from the jump. That'd be really cool to see. And I'm wondering. I know Stephon Diggs came out and he actually basically said, well, I could go back to one of the numbers I wore in college. A lot of people already paid for my merch as being number 14, and he basically just said like, hey, that's part of my career at this point. I switched from this number to this number, and that's kind of my story. And I kind of like that he's kind of there. I mean, if players want to switch it, then go for it. But I don't know. It's gonna take a little bit for me to get used to.
Yeah, me too. Right there with you.
But without further ado, we are officially down to the wire, which means we're going to go through everything we talked about in this show and send you guys off into the weekend on a good note. Starting off in MLB news, we talked about the Red Sox bouncing back and looking much better. As of late, they're now 4-3. We forgot to say it. They're tied for first in the AL East. Let's
Tied
go.
for first. It's the only time we're gonna say it this whole year. Let's go.
Absolutely. Let's go, Sox. I am so pumped for that. We also talked about Erod's return after very serious heart complications in 2020. We
Very
talked
beautiful
about
thing.
Yeah, we talked about our expectations in general for this team. Obviously, with what Robert just said there, his expectations are not too high, as you just heard throughout this episode. In in other MLB news, we talked about the Mets' controversial walk-off win against the Miami Marlins via hit by pitch. We talked about Trevor Bauer getting investigated by the MLB for illegal substance use. Not illegal substance use. Illegal substances on a baseball. Do not want to slander Trevor Bauer like that. Will not do that to the man. We also talked about whether Shohei Ohtani can sustain both hitting and pitching throughout his career. We sure as hell hope so. It would be the greatest thing to see him sustain this success. I wish him the most. I wish him the best of luck in doing so and the best of health. And
Mm-hmm.
then in NFL news, we discussed we discussed Tom Brady saying there is another way besides the Patriot way. He's right, but I do come to the consensus that if you want to win the Patriot way and the Spurs way and different ways like that, have proven to be successful before. Maybe you could make the case though too of the 1990s Chicago Bulls. I mean, for anyone who watched The Last Dance, we saw it looked like a very well-oiled machine at first, but we looked after seeing The Last Dance, there were definitely some problems with those guys. So
Absolutely.
maybe he does have a point. We're gonna have to see how that plays out. And we ended things off tonight talking about the NFL easing jersey number requirements, possibly for the 2021 season. If you guys have not followed us on social media yet at this point, make sure you do that. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, again, Apple. Sorry, you guys, it just has not in the cards yet. And if you want to follow us, and if you want to kind of get a main hub of everything going on, you can follow us on our Instagram at down.to-the-wire. Again, at down.to-the-wire for any other updates. Robert, you want to plug yourself real quick?
Yeah, so for my show, it's called the Pesky Pole Podcast. Rolls off the tongue. It is very beautiful. I talk about, obviously, a lot of Red Sox stuff, a little bit of minor leagues, and some around the MLB in general. When I have other guests on, especially like Adam, who we don't talk about, I'll talk about football and other stuff like that. But if you guys want to check out some interviews with some Red Sox players and minor league players, go check that out. I just did an interview, like I said earlier, with Cole Brannon, second round pick for the Red Sox a while back. So if you guys want to check that out, hopefully link will be in the description.
Yeah, I will definitely try to. You're definitely getting tagged in this one, buddy. Do not fret whatsoever. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more. But from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa,
And I am Robert Shelley.
and we hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Take care.